Hey guys, Mozo with Netground Tech here, and today I'm bringing you my Legacy of Phrecia. I'm bringing 4 League starters with 2 of them that I really highly recommend. 2 of them are kind of a meme and like really gonna take some investment to scale and feel well, but you can at least League start them in currency form and stuff like that. But first off, let's get right into it. Really excited. I am the melee guy. I love melee so much. Coming from PoE 1 to 2, now I'm gonna play Phrecia. My builds are casual, right? Like I work full time. I don't have all the time in the world. I try to make guides for, people like me or like-minded like me where they might not have all the time in the world or don't play it kind of like a job or as a career as some other people. So I always try to think about that when it comes to like making builds. And with that said, we'll get right into it. So first off, this is going to be the bread and butter build. If you're going to play one build, if you're somebody like me and you're like, you know what, I'm only going to have time for one build. I want to be able, I can take this build. It requires nothing to get going, requires nothing to Uber and XR, nothing to get later in the game. And as I get currency, if you're in trade, or as I get more gear and stuff like that, a solo self-found, I'm a solo self-found guy, you can reliably clear everything in the game, and this is going to do it. Earthshatter. Ancestral Commander Earthshatter, this is pretty much like Jug improved, at least in my opinion. And what we have here, you have the big things are Defiance of Destiny, Ancestral Defiance, absolutely crazy. The Slayer version, even though we don't have Slayer in this league, but like this enabled Slayer to pretty much become immortal in some builds. Ancestral Endurance, 3 Endurance charges. With that, you're going to get 9 Endurance charges just from the tree and this Ascendancy, which is going to make you super tanky, especially with all the plus max res. Very good. It's just absolutely incredible. As a Warcry setup, you have Death Rattle and Call the Ancestors. A lot of people aren't going to go Death Rattle. For general mapping, my setup is going to be Call the Ancestors, Death Rattle, Toughen Skid, and then Ancestral Endurance. I don't think Defiance of Destiny is going to be needed in the early mapping as you get on. Maybe later in the game you can go that route. Also, Born Under Fire, very good. And the thing is, that is nearby enemies, so it is a little bit tough if you get like off screen or stuff like that. That's why you got to think about that when you think about Born Under Fire. But Death Rattle is just really cool. It's just, I think it was Affliction League when you had the other Ascendancies. Explode is just absolutely, you don't need it for Earthshatter because the clear is really good, unironically, believe it or not. And Call the Ancestors is incredible. That downside doesn't really matter. It's like with my setup, it's going to be like point 0.10 of a tenth of a second slower than you normally would. But the increased Warcry recovery rate's absolutely massive. So you pretty much save like 6 to 7 points in the passive skill tree, which is huge. It's very good. It's going to be awesome in your auto exert setup, and that's pretty much it. I think also any type of strike skill, not so much multi strike at a Zenith. I don't recommend that, but I do think Bone Shatter and the Bone Shatter variants, whether Bleed or just typical Bone Shatter, are going to be incredible too. Don't know exactly how Ancestral Echo is going to work, but theoretically, for bosses, you might just do double damage. Like that's kind of crazy, right? So very cool. I don't know what the spirits do, honestly. Maybe they're in like the wiki. I haven't really looked it up yet, but that's my plan to go Ancestral Commander. Here's the tree. This is probably my most fleshed out build. I've been playing Earthshatter since it came out, almost 6 years now. I love melee. I've always loved it, but this is like, you don't have to worry about this build. You get so much. Damage is very good. Survivability is absolutely incredible. Super reliable build. Super fun. Auto exert setup, like everything's going to be in here. You could also reference my old Slayer or Berserker guides for those Earthshatters back in the day, and it's kind of the same concept, but very reliable build. Next up, we will talk about, let's go to Bog Shaman, right? So in case you don't want to play melee, my second recommended build for me, I'm kind of a hipster, would be actually Wintertide brand. You might look at Bog Shaman like, why the hell would I play Wintertide brand? And you know what? I don't know. Let's just do stuff for fun, right? So Pandemic, more damage over time. Toad Pack, very cool because you get skill effect duration, projectile speed. We don't care, but maybe for your Creeping Falls is a little bit better. The minus LE resist is kind of a pain, but the increased AoE is really nice because now you don't need any AoE investment for Wintertide brand. You don't really need it anyway, but it's quality of life. It's going to make it feel good. Next up, Vile Imprecations. Whatever, right? Malediction, very good. They take more damage, which is nice. But the big thing also is that increased reservation efficiency of Curse Aura skills, which we'll talk about in the POB. And lastly, I go Sanguine Power because you get absolutely ridiculous life totals with that, with ES gear, right? So we'll go into Bog Shaman. This is going to be the damage-focused, non-life damage focused. Like, you still get a bunch of life here, 8 point something K. you don't have to go low life, but it's really hard to scale the dot damage, right? So Wintertide Brandy's Chaos Dots, like if you can go low life, you really want to because it just adds a lot of damage, right? You get some dot stuff, typical like Wintertide Brand tree. Not typical going down here comparatively, but as a box shaman, you want a lot of life. We want to utilize Righteous Fire eventually, get a lot of life regen, and the damage is pretty good for the damage focus setup. Like if you're in trade, you're gonna get like 3 mil damage. You get the 3 brands, you get the Wintertide's End in combination too. But the thing that's tough is that it's hard to explain Wintertide brand, right? Because there's so many videos on it, but you have your Wintertide brand, you can get 3 of them stacked up. Once it hits 20 stages, now it's at its maximum damage, right? A lot of people don't invest enough into stages. It's hard to mathematically figure out a good balance, but the way I think about it is, and I always try to like think about it from a holistic approach, is that I want to get to 20 stages as fast as possible, and I want to be able to do damage at that 20 stages and have the dot damage be there for a little bit, right? Not like forever, because you really want to have that expire, so then you get Wintertide's End, and Brand Recall helps with that, resetting that and triggering that. But ideally, you would kind of offset your Wintertide brand, so you'd have your Wintertide brand, Wintertide brand, Wintertide brand. So that way, as soon as Wintertide's End as a debuff expires, you have your Wintertide's End. As soon as that second brand expires, you reapply another one. The Wintertide's End is always at that max effect consistently. Like, you don't want to have Wintertide's End, not always up. You want to have that almost 100% uptide to it. It's a little bit difficult to do that. It takes some like thought process or not, offset it. But it is something to think about it. But from a starter, you pretty much just only need a 4 link and you get going that way. Does it scale incredibly well? No, not really. But for a base starter build, it's very, very good. I have this version damage focus and then like a more defensive life focus, which is really, really good too. This one has the auto exert setup for endurance charges. A little bit weird, but focus on life regen. Doesn't have a lot of damage scaling, but it's okay. It'll work at least to get going. You'll be tanky. Like, this is really bad gear. I always try to put that caveat out here, except for the Earthshatter, because that's like my Slayer gear set. But for these builds are just really, really, crappy gear. And the point is that you're going to be able to you could probably get like 20k life, honestly. I really think you can with like really good rolls with ES and life. So really, really cool stuff there. If this, you can transition to Reap and Exsanguinate eventually, because I think with, is it Nightblood? It is Nightblood. You could probably get some crazy damage scaling as you get more and more life. So I think that's actually going to be an excellent build. Wintertide's brand, very solid. It's like a classic. Very comfortable skill, very comfortable starter. And the next two are going to be questionable, right? But people have asked. So Shockwave Totem. Shockwave Totem is incredible, especially as a Polytheist, because what's going to happen is that you get Astral Projectile for free, which is kind of nuts, right? So this is also very good for Pyroclast Mines. It's a little bit weird going from Templar to Saboteur side of the tree for Pyroclast Mines, but still very good. Devada Relicash, you get your charges. You get nearby enemies blinded, Solaris, and Garukan, like more evasion. It's very good, right? You can go Vault of Aberith for, maybe leveling. Maybe it's a little bit faster leveling that way, going that route early, or Hex Reflection 2 if you want to go that. But you get all this free crit, nearby enemies blinded. It's up to you what you want to get. Hex immunity. I think probably Relicash, Lunaris, and going over here to Solaris is probably good. All the shock ground immunity, or all the ground immunity is awesome. Life regen, mana regen, add more evasion in combination with blind. Very good synergy there. And Lunaris is just nuts. Like, you don't need Astral Projectile, so as soon as you start and you go Shockwave Totem or Pyroclast Mines, it's excellent. Like, the damage, the thing about Shockwave Totem as a starter, you need a lot of like investment. Like, if you look at some of the builds over the years, like PoE Ninja, I didn't get too much into the gear for this and my next like meme build, but you need a lot. Like, you're gonna need the cluster jewel setups. You're gonna need like good uniques. You're gonna need the Hemshrods. You're gonna need good gear to scale. Plus levels of fizz, all spells. But as a starter, like, you could be able to get there comfortably, but it's not. I don't think this is going to be as good as a starter as a lot of other builds. But if you really want to play Shockwave Totem, you can do it. A lot easier to do in trade. If you really, really know what you're doing, you can do it in solo self-found. And, it'll be good, but the Shockwave Totem is going to be investment. This is not like, back in the day, people would do Wand or Ellie attack builds, like whether wand or daggers or something, and like you really needed great investment after Expedition League. You really, really did. You couldn't just like roll your place on the keyboard with lightning strike. Like, oh damn, why am I so squishy? Why is this? It's kind of even like last league. A lot of people played Slayer lightning strike without investment. They're like, oh, why does this feel so bad? Well, you didn't invest enough, right? You really need good gear for some of these builds, and this is one of those builds where can you start it? Yes. Do I recommend it? No. But if you really want to, you can. And having Astral Projector innate to the Ascendancy is going to be super comfy, super fun, and just super nice, right? Like why wouldn't you want that? And lastly, we'll talk about like the ultimate meme, and this is going to be pretty much like a trade focused build or solo self found, even though I don't recommend it. But this is going to be like a giga currency farmer, and the idea is that you would start off and you would go to forest tracking for a little bit of easy dream feather scaling without dream feather, and to the magi. What you're going to do here is that the way I have it set up is that we're going to go supreme ego, and we're going to not utilize two items. Up to you. I recommend going no boots and no gloves, but you could probably go no boots and no helmet, and that way you get way easier resist maxing on your gear, and then you're just super fast, right? Either way, like if you want the more life, like you get to pick. You're going to need the body armor for your attack skills. Illuminate Wits is crazy. Big damage. It has such good synergy with Roots of the Grove. Uh, the way I'm going to do this is actually don't go the poison setup initially. Just go Woodland Shrines. Just because the whole idea of this build is that you're a zoomer. Like you're going to move fast as hell. You're going to dodge a lot of shit. And you get all this free like damage scaling from evasion. You use Supreme Ego with Grace or Wrath. And then use Precision too to solve your accuracy as a starter. Because again, you're not going to get those perfect accuracy gear, a bunch of decks or accuracy on your gear. This is pretty much like, hey, with gem setups and the Ascendancy setup, you can just get going. And, if you're in trade, this is probably kind of a crazy option to just like literally farm an insane amount of currency. This could be a probably like crazy Sanctum runner early too. But, really cool, like interesting build. Kind of a meme. But it's just something I thought up, and I'm like, oh, you know what? If somebody wants to play like a wand attack build, this might be a good idea. And that's pretty much it. Cluster setup later would be really good, and a little bit weird stuff here. You get a bunch of free life. Like you get pretty tanky. Like you don't need to do this much life investment. Like 115 to like 130 or 125 might be like good enough. But a lot of good stuff here. Very fun late game. This is not like ideal. You would probably want a Trinity setup on your power siphon. You can really use any wand skill and utilize multi-elemental and scale your damage that way later on. But again, that's going to take investment, and I'm focusing on starter, casual, and not having a lot of resources early on. But this is probably going to be an insane option for Trey. A lot of fun late in the game. Unless you really know what you're doing, you can go back to Roots of the Grove for later on in the game and go with a poison setup. Because if you got 4 Sacred Wisp, returning projectiles, you're going to get absolutely disgusting poison stacks, and it's going to be really easy to get it going. But to start off, I think an on-hit Ellie version probably really nice just to like zoom and farm currency. And that's pretty much it, guys. 4 builds. One of them, the Ancestral Commander, that I can wholeheartedly recommend with experience. Box Shaman, I can also recommend too. Just a little bit difficult to gear with the Ellie risks. A little bit difficult to gear because you're going to need like good ES rolls for the life. But overall, it's going to be a pretty good build. Petrified Blood. I mean, your life total is going to be other people's life total. You're going to be low life and have more life than other people. So, like, you're going to be pretty tanky. It's going to be pretty solid. I've done a lot of Wintertide brand. I have a lot of experience with it. I think it's a good skill. Not the best skill to scale, like farm Ubers. But it's an option, right, if you want to try Bog Shimmer or something like that. And that's pretty much it. Again, most of the Rat Tech here. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know. If you haven't played PoE 1, I think this is a very good option. If you're coming from PoE 2 and looking at this video, try Melee. Or don't, but if you try Melee in PoE 1, it's in a very good state. The way Earthshatter and some of the other Melee skills in PoE 1 are far superior than PoE 2. That's kind of a design choice because the way PoE 2 is, but WSAD is a little bit of pain in the ass, but this is much more of a one-button build. Some of my builds over here, so should be easier in the hands, fingers, and should be pretty chill. And PoE 1 is kind of a chill game, right? Like, it is super fast, and you're going to be zooming, but it still feels very nice. My only other comment is that with PoE 2, I still prefer it because of the pace and just generally the graphics and the atmosphere and stuff like that. I'm not much of a zoomer, but give PoE 1 a try if you haven't seen any of my PoE 1 videos. If you're a PoE 2 Andy, that's fine, but give PoE 1 a try. You might like it. I think you only need to get to level 80 for the gear set. Let me see this. See if it shows it. But, you know, it'd be pretty cool to have another gear set for PoE too, so why not? Pretty nice microtransaction. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, if you did, like, comment, subscribe, or dump. I really don't care. You can just comment, curse me off or whatever. No big deal. And have a good one.